All right, we are back. We are back in business here. Been a month since I posted, but I'm back in action. Last video I posted was kind of one of these crazy red days where the market kind of fell off a cliff. Looked like maybe that was going to be the top, and you know, to think that is just insane because, as we know, stocks only go up. And the market is now back to all-time highs, and we are potentially about to blow through that tomorrow or any really any day now. So we're gonna just kind of refresh here. I'm gonna put out a couple ideas, a few thoughts that I'm having right now, a couple setups, and we're gonna go from there. We're gonna get back on it here, back on our grind. A few of the names that I was talking about back a month ago are actually still in play-ish. Maybe only one I would say is probably a green light right now, and I would say that's SOUN. So we were looking at that in here, and we had this. This is when we had that little flash crash, and I thought, okay, this is done. Same thing with AFRM. We were watching this crash. This was done. Now, obviously, as we know, everything kind of rebounded. But regardless of that, you have to respect your stop loss. So we move on. Now we're assessing it again, and it seems that some of these have kind of come back into play. This SOUN in particular, there's a couple things going on. For one, it's really just bounced right back into this zone that we were looking at beforehand. The moving averages, I like to kind of take a peek at. That looks cool. It's I I really like kind of squeezing when it squeezes out. This isn't necessarily that, but above the moving averages is always good to see. And what really drew me to this in the first place, two reasons. Number one, it's AI. Obviously, that's a huge sector in the future. And number two is this volume in this chart really have a clean look to it. We're on the monthly 5 year here. We can see, let's take it to the monthly 3 year. We can see we had this monster volume back here, February 24. Had this, kind of controlled sell-off here on the big picture chart. And now we have this beautiful asymmetrical kind of setup here, which we were talking about a month ago. But just the timing wasn't right. Sometimes it's not necessarily your idea, it's just the timing. So this is still really just holding this 4 zone, and anything I would say big picture you could say 4, but really if we dial it in, probably this 480 zone I would say is a tighter zone to play your risk off of. The weekly chart, this is the weekly 2 year. The weekly 2 year on this one is okay. Not the prettiest action in here, but again, when you have those type of flash crash moments, they can kind of throw a monkey wrench in the whole visual. That's kind of where you just have to rely on those big picture high volume levels that you're basing off of. So SOUN is still looking very nice. Also, NVIDIA, I believe NVIDIA earnings comes out Wednesday, which that's going to be, I'm just kind of looking here quickly. I'm pretty sure NVIDIA earnings comes out Wednesday, so that's really going to be the judgment call for this. If NVIDIA blows through, let's say SPY blows through highs, NVIDIA follows that with a good, earnings. I could see SOUN going. I mean, I would hope so. AI, this was an old one. This was kind of the first one to go in the AI basket back a few years ago now. Back in here in 23. And then this NNOX. So, I mean, look to see if NVIDIA goes, that whole basket goes. But in particular, for me, I'm looking at SOUN. This one, to me, is the best of those three. NNOX, I wouldn't even bother with. There's just not enough volume. So that's number one. SOUN. Contingent upon NVIDIA earnings. I wouldn't gamble before that, obviously. Never gamble on earnings. And to see why that is, we can look at this. Peloton. The, poster child for crappy stocks. Even this thing. Earnings beat, just goes crazy. Which that's just mind-blowing. But regardless, that's why we don't gamble on earnings. So that's the first name, SOUN. This I still haven't given up hope on. The cannabis sector. I've narrowed it down to just ACB. Before I was looking at CGC as well. This Tilray had some action. But I've narrowed my wants to just ACB. Similar to SOUN in this sector. I found the one I want here in ACB. And I just can't let this go because I know, for one, this is the monthly 2-year. And we have some huge volume that came in over the past year. We had something in here in September 23, and then we had 324, 424, massive volume, like just absurd amounts. So another one of those setups similar to SOUN where it's very asymmetrical, where you can kind of pick one line in the sand and really place your bets off of that. And it really helps with a clear picture of a trade. I would say this 586 from back in here is a very key level. And as we can see, if we drill in here at 586, it's right in the action. It's right in the action of all this, right in the meat of all this action. So it's not pretty. Visually, it's not pretty. But there's so much volume that came into this name, coupled with the fact that just the growing industry in general. I can't not watch this because I feel like I can't say I know there's going to be a move, but I feel like there's going to be a strong move to the upside. We just need that big sustained move with the volume. We just haven't been getting that. I think this sector is a little uncertain right now with the election and kind of the polarized, points of view of the candidates. I feel like if Harris if it's in her wheelhouse, this thing could go up. If it's Trump, it probably is going to have to fight some resistance to get going. So this is in a little bit of a limbo land. But this is a close watch for that trigger to get in. Now, I can't necessarily say what that is at the moment because I feel like based off of the things I just kind of elaborated on, I'm not sure right now. But this is in the bullpen. We're watching this closely. We had this interesting move in here. Again, fell off a cliff, bounced right back, came right back in here. So we're right in that 586 zone. So I would say, again, for just a clear-cut level, if you wanted to play off, I would take that 586 zone, and I would probably go just a touch below it. Maybe somewhere in here, 555, I would say. I think that would be a smart level to play off of and base your risk off of. And as we know from the past, this sector can really get going and make some strong moves to the upside. So, and the weekly 2-year actually looks quite nice. I mean, eventually I could see this thing blowing through the 8s and making a run to 10. That seems like a pretty straight up move that could happen in the future. So ACB strong watch. That's 2 there. The ZIM, kind of a funny one. Way back, I think my first video on this channel, I had discussed, let's see if I can find it. I think it was in here. I was talking about this trade in here. This is back on when the whole war in Israel was taking place, or it still is, but this is when it began, I think. And I believe this is an Israel shipping company. And I was zeroing in on this, and we had this huge move, like absurd momentum to the upside. And we've held that. We've, dipped a little bit, consolidated. But now I believe this just released earnings. A few days ago. Yeah, 7 days ago we released earnings, had this nice gap up on volume. Then we had a kind of an ugly sell-off. But this here, call me crazy, but I still think this could potentially have another leg up, even after all that move to the upside. Because if you drill back in on this monthly 5-year, we have, let's go on the monthly 10-year, a little more clear. We have this beautiful, I'm going to draw some lines. I usually don't do this, but we have this beautiful, you could call this a cup and handle ish. This was a beautiful kind of tight little flag action here, but I'm seeing this cup and handle kind of flat top resistance here playing off of somewhere in this 20 zone for this potential move through 25. If this can hold on, in this level here, and that's why I think it's kind of nice, because a lot of times you see these earnings plays that gap up, have a nice green move, then they fade, and then everyone kind of forgets about it, and then they continue to rally upwards after that first initial kind of sell-off. And this, I'm picking up vibes on this potentially falling in that basket, especially with the macro, economic pressures that's going on in the world. This could continue to go. It seems crazy, but in this market, in these days, it's just, maybe it's not that crazy. But I would say that this is a very interesting situation here for risking off. I mean, probably around this 1920 zone. 1920 again. In this market right now, I'm just kind of being a little more tight with my how wide I want to hold through some of these, how much wiggle room I want to give. So with this one, given the fact that it is up so much, probably a 19-20 zone right in this kind of gap fill I would use as a risk. But I could see this kind of consolidating in here, putting together a few green candles, and then the potential big breakout through this 23, 24 zone, that could be a monster. So that's two, I would say, ZIM and SOUN that have the green light kind of brewing. Again, obviously we have to respect our risk. If it goes down, we get out and we just move on. But those two are setting up nicely, and especially if this ZIM kind of starts to put in some action up here and consolidate below this high, that's always a beautiful setup, the consolidation onto the highs. And as we've seen, this thing can go. So potential big mover here. I mean, for all we know, this thing could go to 27, 30. Let's see. Yeah, so ZIM, really nice. That's keep an eye on that. This ALAB, another interesting one. And again, I want to do a good job here of explaining kind of the categories of each trade, because I think I've been a little, I want to be more specific for you guys. The ZIM is clearly near highs, right? This is potentially going to be a breakout if it does work out and go up. So we like that. That's going to be more of a green light now trade. The SOUN is kind of in the middle, where the highs are up here and we're kind of in between the highs and the lows, and we're not necessarily at that moment where we're going to blow through the highs, that is. So this could take a little bit longer for maybe a pop up, consolidate, and then the blow through highs. Okay, now the ALAB is the third level down, where we're just playing a bottom bouncer. So each approach is slightly different. Some are better, some are worse. You know, we go through these things, but there's certain approaches that we need to take for each setup. Now, ALAB is probably the lower. As you get further and further away from the breakout level, it has less and less conviction, in my opinion. So this ALAB looks very nice for a bottom bounce. I really like these IPO kind of big volumes and then fade for a while. Everyone forgets about it. Kind of like this Reddit back here, stuff like that. But this ALAB it's put in this really nice. First of all, we've had a spike in volume. It's had this really nice action where it's just basically been in this box. Another asymmetrical type visual here, where we're just in a box, support, resistance, simple, right? And it had a really nice move out of this 40 zone, but has potential for more legs higher, especially if the SPY continues to go up. So this is kind of what I'm seeing here. Maybe a potential pop, consolidate, and then we have that moving average squeezer that I'm talking about, where this comes in and the moving averages get tight, and then we kind of blow through that with some volume to the upside, maybe to this 50, 54 zone, maybe 60. But I want to really make that clear in terms of, depending on the setup, we need to tailor how we think it's going to move. So, and then that then ripples into how we're going to act in you know, the amount we're going to be willing to risk on the trade, etc. So ZIM could hold, consolidate, and have a nice big green candle breakout, you know, where it's like 1-2 days, you're in, you're out. Where ALAB, you might kind of be sitting in this thing. This might be, you know, consolidate. As you can see here, this was a week of just kind of sideways action. Now today we're popping out of it, getting some volume, but again, you may end up just sitting in this thing. So, and then SOUN is a hybrid where it could blow out of this 540 level. We might, for all we know, tomorrow or when Nvidia comes out with earnings, this could shoot through 540 and we could make a move up to the 6 zone, and then maybe it consolidates, and then maybe it goes through the 630 zone for a big breakout. Now that would be a slightly longer hold than the ZIM, you know, in a perfect world. So we need to tailor how we're approaching these with the setup that we're categorizing it in. I hope that makes sense. I'll continue to elaborate on that as we go, but those are the big ones that we're looking at. I saw this here just a few minutes ago, this LUNR, big volume, interesting look. And again, with what I just said, then you can kind of snap into asking yourself, okay, well, what's this? What does this fall into? How would I approach this? This is more of a breakout type situation. Also, this has some good history of a massive breakout back here in February 24. Yeah, I'm just looking at this for the first time, really. But this is kind of an interesting one. I'm just going to kind of toss this out there. I'm not going to go too deep into kind of the levels on these, because these are a little more crazy. I don't feel as comfortable giving exact levels on stuff like this. Those are more of the meaty trades that I just talked about that I feel good about, really, you know, kind of painting a full picture. This thing, for all we know, this could go nuts tomorrow. And the same thing with these two. The monkeypox basket, we'll call this. We have GovX and we have VRAX. Both have lots of volume, and they have a similar visual here. We're starting to kind of flag out on the daily. So this thing could be nuts. This thing, these aren't typically what I go after, but I just wanted to kind of drop these in, just to kind of give you some ideas. But this and GovX, potential big movers. So that's kind of three Momo cheaper names. I guess 520. This one not. I guess never mind, not cheaper, but they started cheaper. They're not cheaper now, but 3 Momo names, and then 3 kind of big meaty, you know, long swing trades that I really like to hang my hat on. I think those are where you make your big money. So a couple ideas there. We're gonna keep it dialed in.